Hello guys, welcome back. My name is Nathan, and today we're going to be discussing, predicting, and previewing the 2021 playoff series between the Habs and the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, the Canadiens and Leafs have not faced off in a playoff series since 1979. It's been a long wait, but I think the wait will certainly be worth it this time around. And when it comes to the series on paper, even though it might not be the closest, this is a series that I think could potentially last 7 games, and I think the Montreal Canadiens do still have a chance compared to what some other people think. But when it comes to this series on the Leafs and the Habs side, what do the stats show so far this season? Who has the true advantage, and who do I predict to win this playoff series in the end? Watch till the end for the entire preview and the entire predictions, and make sure you hit that subscribe button. 60% of the people watching are not subscribed, and we make almost daily hockey content on this channel, so if you're enjoying so far, we'd love to have you in the Grab Gang. Now, diving deep into today's preview for the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Montreal Canadiens, this is probably, in my opinion, at least when it comes to the round 1 matchups, the matchup I'm looking forward to the most. Just that old, renewed rivalry in the playoffs, I think, is going to be absolutely amazing. And I think the style and quality of hockey we will see here will actually be really competitive and will be really interesting too. And I think there's a lot of people, and a lot of Leafs fans especially, that just rise and go right into saying they're going to win in 4 games. But if we've learned any lessons from this Toronto Maple Leafs team in the playoffs, nothing comes easy. And I think the Montreal Canadiens, especially healthy, could give them some trouble. Now, when it comes to these stats themselves and the record, at least, we'll start out with that. The Toronto Maple Leafs this season have a 35-13-6 record, 76 points on the year, compared to the Montreal Canadiens, who in those same amount of games, or I think one more, have the 24-21-10 record with 58 points on the season. And when it comes to the ranks for both teams, the Toronto Maple Leafs, in terms of their NHL rank, go 5th in points per game, and the Montreal Canadiens sit at 18th, behind teams like the Dallas Stars, the St. Louis Blues, and the team like the New York Rangers, who didn't even make the playoffs. We're going to go on to the top scorers for both teams, see how they match up, see how the stats differ, and they differ a lot, to give you guys a little bit of a heads up. When it comes to the Toronto Maple Leafs top scorers, and their big guys, their big scorers, over 30 points, they obviously start with Mitch Marner at 67, who's had a great year, especially when it comes to playmaking. Obviously, playing with Auston Matthews does help, but he's been an amazing, consistent force, and especially on even strength has been a big part of that team. And of course, then you go on to Auston Matthews, who's right behind him at 65 points. Obviously, the goal scoring is the main one, that with Matthews getting 40 goals in this shortened season and just being an absolute madman out there. He's one of the best goal scorers, if not the best goal scorer right now, consecutively in the NHL. And I think that's also going to be a major factor going into this year's playoffs. You also have John Tavares, who 49 points, who always seems to go under the radar. At some points was kind of underwhelming throughout this season in terms of his overall impact, but still in terms of consistent scoring is up there for Toronto, which is exactly what you want to see. And then you have William Nylander at 41 points, who also has had some streakiness throughout this year, some great stretches, but some underwhelming ones. He will also be a major factor, as last year in the playoffs as well, kind of like Marner, kind of like Matthews, didn't really have the presence that you totally want. And then you have Morgan Rielly at 34, who leads defenseman on Toronto, no surprise there. And then you have the Montreal Canadiens top scorers, who comparatively aren't as strong, nearly as strong, but you have Tyler Toffoli leading the pack with 44 points, just a major valuable player on that team, who, especially throughout the season, has given them goals and given them great point scoring that they desperately needed. And then you have Jeff Petrie at 42 points, right behind him, who obviously would lead defenseman in scoring and has had a great season. Kind of slowed down in terms of the overall play of the past month or so, but if he's back 100% and back to that early season level, then that's absolutely huge for the Habs. And then you have Nick Suzuki at 39 points, who's kind of gotten a little bit streaky as well, but especially lately has been awesome, and we saw how big of a presence he was in last year's playoffs, and I think that will definitely transition as well. Then you have Tomas Tatar with 30 points, who has played a little bit lesser games. Same thing with Brendan Gallagher as well, who also has 23 points, but those are leadership guys that also had great parts of last year's team. You have Josh Andersen with 24 points, most of them coming in goals. I think he has 17 goals in the year, one of the main leaders on the Habs. He'll definitely be one to watch out for. And then you have Philip Deneau with 24 points as well. The first line center, the guy who's played at that position. If he's fully healthy, I think especially defensively, he's the one guy that I think can really challenge, or that first line really, that can challenge that Matthews, Marner force. He's stopped them in the past, and he will definitely be a major factor, if healthy, throughout this series. And then we have to go on to the goaltending, which I think in most playoff series is the thing that turns the tide for either team, but especially in this series for both teams, goaltending is absolutely critical. And we'll obviously go into the stats and obviously the playoffs in the past. I mean, with Montreal, Carey Price was absolutely amazing against Pittsburgh and was solid against the Philadelphia Flyers. And when it comes to the Toronto Maple Leafs, their goaltending has factored into their playoff losses a lot, especially Freddie Andersen, who at the wrong times and the wrong places would always seem to give up a bad goal and a bad chance and would end up sinking the Leafs somehow in their final game of the series. This will definitely be the deciding factor, or one of, I think, in this series. And when it comes to the Toronto Maple Leafs to start out, they obviously, I think, will end up having the starter as Jack Campbell, even though they're trying to try to play Freddie Andersen right now. I doubt he'll be the number one guy for the playoffs, maybe a second option if Jack Campbell doesn't play great, but I doubt that Freddie Andersen will see games in the playoffs, maybe one of the most, unless something drastic happens. Now, when it comes to the actual stats, Jack Campbell in his 21 games played was absolutely phenomenal this year, with a 7-2-2 record, 923 save percentage, and his plus 509 goals he would have expected, which ended up being 12th in the NHL, was just fantastic, and I think especially down the stretch was such a great motivator for the Leafs as well, especially during his win streak. And then you have Freddie Andersen, who did end up playing more games than him, of 23. He has a 13-8-2 record, an 897 save percentage, a minus 1036 goals saved above expected, which is 14th last in the NHL. He once again did not have the greatest year, and I think his fundamentals were really off. It didn't seem like he was fully healthy either, and just seemed like nothing really went right. To me, there's no reason for him to play any playoff games unless you need him to, and even then, in the AHL, in the NHL this year, he hasn't proved that he can be at that NHL caliber level. And of course, after that, you got David Rittich, who is the backup option, I would say. And for Montreal, of course, you got the number one in Carey Price, who will seemingly be healthy for the playoffs. We'll see how that goes. But this year, in terms of the regular season stats, in 25 games played, as a 12-7-5 record, a 901 save percentage, and a minus 8.11 goals saved above expected. 23rd last in the NHL. Not as bad as Freddie Andersen, but certainly had his streaky moments and just not great ones either. He had some pretty good games here or there and some great performances, but also, like a lot of other goaltenders, just couldn't find any real consistency. But the playoffs obviously are a different story for him. And then you got Jake Allen, who in 29 games played at 11, a 12, and 5 record, a 907 save percentage, and a minus 4.26 goals saved above expected. He was a guy that when Carey Price wasn't playing good at all, would really back up well to him and will be an amazing presence there for Montreal. But as the second half wore on, I think Jake Allen kind of declined a little bit, especially when it comes to his save percentage, where it just kind of tanked at times. He ended up finishing below 500, and I doubt he will play playoff games unless he has to, just like Freddie Andersen. Now, there's a few other stats we can go through. Of course, the shots per game for both teams are actually pretty similar. When it comes to the Toronto Maple Leafs shots per game, they stand at 6th overall in the league with a 31.1 per game, and the Montreal Canadiens are 7th in the league with a 30.7 shots per game. When it comes to shots per against as well, they're super competitive and super close. The Toronto Maple Leafs stand 7th best with 27.9 shots allowed per game, and the Montreal Canadiens come just below that at 27.8, 6th best in the NHL, and also pretty high up there. And still looking pretty good. I mean, with both sides, they don't allow a lot of shots. They don't, and they also get a lot of shots on their side too. So I think it'll be a pretty even series that way. When it comes to the special teams, which is definitely going to be an important force, especially for Toronto, who power play wise has just been awful in the second half. I think they went like 1 for 35 or something, just absolutely atrocious. They still end up getting 16th in terms of their power play percentage with 20.3, and Montreal on the other hand 20th with a 19.3 as well. But on the PK side, Montreal does have an advantage. Toronto is 77.7%, 22nd in the NHL, and for Montreal, 79.3, 18th in the NHL. So that'll be definitely something to look forward to. I think for Toronto, that power play and that just offensive consistency was missing last year against Columbus, and I think if they are able to set the tone that way too, that would definitely help, because obviously their confidence power play wise has been hampered quite a bit in the second half. But if they're able to get going against Montreal truly and consistently, then I think Toronto might have a much easier series on their hands. But I think for Montreal, that special teams are definitely going to be a major factor. Now, when it comes to the X factors for both teams and the things that I think will definitely make or break the series for each team, we're going to start with Toronto, I guess, and the three main X factors. The first one is obviously Matthews and Marner's performances. In the playoffs in the past, they haven't quite at the biggest moments really come up huge for Toronto, and I think that's definitely kind of stifled their overall consistency. Matthews had some really big goals in last year's playoffs, but especially in those final games, wasn't able to make super consistent efforts. That'll be something to look forward to, and if they're a big presence in every single game, then I think it'll also be very hard for Montreal to keep it back. You also have, I think, the goaltending, which in terms of the actual clutchness, I think will definitely be the most important part for Toronto, because, again, I don't want to say goaltending is an X factor. The clutchness when it comes to the goaltending is the main one, because in the past, again, they would have decent goaltending leading up to the final clinching games. And then once those final 5 to 7 games happened, the goaltending would just absolutely fall apart in the wrong moments, and Toronto would be left in the dust. It kind of happened against Columbus, but especially versus Boston, that was a big problem with Freddie Andersen. And if Jack Campbell is the starter, he's going to have to correct that in a major way. You also have the power play revival, which I think is definitely a huge part. Again, if Toronto's able to set the tone power play wise, then this is a much different story. But if they continue the slumps that they've had in the second half, then Montreal's going to have a much easier time, especially defensively. And when it comes to the Montreal Canadiens X factors, I think the huge one is Carey Price's playoff heroics, if those will continue in this year's playoffs. Because if Carey Price is able to put like the .936 save percentage he had on the board last year into this playoff series, then this is a completely different 7-game series. This is one that could go all the way and could be in Montreal's favor. It could be as serious as that. And also for Montreal, I think the health is a huge thing. If they're 100% healthy, if they're 100% ready to go, then I think that's a much bigger chance for them. But it seems like we've got guys like Brendan Gallagher on their hand injury. They are getting better. But if they are 100%, that is absolutely huge. And then also the big, tough defense they've kind of tried to revive over the past year, with guys like Sherratt coming in last year, now in the trade deadline, guys like John Merrill coming in, and obviously you got a bunch of guys there as well that can play a more hard and physical game. I think this will definitely be the biggest test they've had yet, obviously, against a high-powered offensive team like the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think this will definitely be one that Montreal makes or breaks for, and if the defense falls flat, if the goaltending falls flat, I really doubt that Marc Bergevin's job will be too secured. We'll see what happens, but I think the defense will definitely be one of the X factors for the Montreal Canadiens this year. And when it comes to the predictions, I guess we might as well get into that. When I look at this series and just how many intangibles there are with guys like Carey Price and all these different teams, I mean, for me, I think for Montreal, they do have a chance in this year's playoffs. I think a lot of people are writing them off completely, and even Habs fans are, which I think is a little bit suspect because, again, we've seen that the Toronto Maple Leafs in the playoffs in the past, they still have not won a playoff series with this current core, and we'll see if that changes this time around. But when I look at this series and just how likely this series will actually end up being, to me, the most likely bet is that the Toronto Maple Leafs win this series, and I think that will be the case. For my official prediction, I'm going to predict the Toronto Maple Leafs will win in 6 games. I think what will happen is Toronto will get the first game, Montreal will get the second, though, and it'll kind of be a back-and-forth battle until Toronto eventually gets the advantage and wins in 6 games. I think it'll be a much closer series than some people do expect. I think the Montreal Canadiens will absolutely come to play, but I think it'll be one that Toronto eventually wins in the end, and finally, for the first time in so long, winning a playoff series, and I think since 2004, when I was 1 year old, finally getting to the second round. We'll see what happens, but I do think Toronto will eventually get the advantage and best the Montreal Canadiens. Now, I do want to say that I am going to be cheering for the Montreal Canadiens in this one. The Leafs and the Habs I both like as teams, and I like watching, and I think Montreal's just the biggest underdog in this year's playoffs, so I'll be cheering for them to get the advantage. We'll see what happens, but I do think in the end, Toronto will advance to round 2 and finally get rid of those playoff curses. But that'll be it for today, guys. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell for more playoff playoff previews just like this one. Comment down below, what do you agree and disagree with my predictions? Who do you think will win this series and in how many games? Who do you see being the major X factors? Who do you see being the MVPs for both sides? Let me know all your thoughts. Make sure you share this video with your friends, get it out there as well, and click on this card for all of my predictions and picks videos right in one playlist. My name is Nathan. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video or stream as well. By the way, we will be streaming all of these games probably on the channel, so I'll see you there in the next time. Have a great day, and goodbye.